This is David Diaz, former WBC lightweight champion of the world, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Boxing Weekly. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mike. Ready to talk about some boxing.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk about some boxing. We've been on a hiatus for about a month, since boxing has been on pretty much a hiatus for the last month. But I assume you did get to see the one big event over the last month, which would have been last night's Juan Manuel Lopez fight?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was really hyped for that. I mean, Lopez has been top-notch for, a long time now, and I was excited to see him get back into title contention. I mean, no, I didn't bother watching it. I mean,
yeah, but you had to see the aftermath, right?
I did catch the aftermath.
That's what I was talking about. I didn't see the fight. It was the aftermath that was so intriguing to me.
It was the fight after the fight that got us all intrigued.
Yeah, and I think from watching that fight and the way that dude was throwing them straight punches and stuff, I think maybe they had the wrong guy fighting Lopez last night. Yeah,
I think so. Maybe they should have just thrown some trunks and shoes on him and had him go out. I mean, I think he's the only one who landed a punch on Lopez. But, yeah, I mean, afterwards, I don't know what the hell happened there, but it looked like Lopez went right after the trainer, and the trainer actually connected with a left hook. And Lopez looked like he felt it a bit, and then and then they ended up, they proceeded to scrap a little bit after that. But yeah, what a shit show! And I mean, I don't know. I guess kind of highlights why Lopez isn't. He's kind of viewed as a little unstable at the moment.
All right, everybody will be able to catch us every week here through Christmas. It looks like we got some good fights lined up. Starting with this week's Pacquiao-Vargas, not that necessarily it's a great fight, but it's a pay-per-view show. You look at what's coming up, I guess we're never going to see Tyson Fury and Vladimir Klitschko fight a rematch.
Yeah, no, I don't think at this point. I think everybody's just kind of moving on from Fury. I mean, everybody was just kind of playing the waiting game for him anyways. But, I mean, with, even talk of negotiations between Joshua and Klitschko, with, Parker and Ruiz Jr. fighting for a vacant title, and, Deontay Wilder out at the moment and his mandatory against Povetkin. I don't think Fury's going to be a player unless he gets his shit together. But I don't think a lot of us are too upset by it because I think for most Joshua looks like the man to beat from the UK, even though he doesn't have that big win like Fury does. But I mean, it's unfortunate, but I hope they kind of, seeing as the fights are being lined up, I'm happy about that. That's all that really matters. So long as the best fight the best. And and
it looks like right now Anthony Joshua's next title defense will be against Eric Molina. Any thoughts on that? I mean, Molina's a tough guy, at least. He's not Charles Martin.
Yeah, I know it was between two guys. It was between either Eric Molina or David Price, the big UK heavyweight.
I'd rather see him fight Molina. I think Molina would have, even though it's not much of a chance, a better chance than Price, because Price don't take a punch real well, let's just say.
No, that's the thing is I was real conflicted as to who I wanted to see win, and honestly I don't think Price or Molina has done anything to deserve a shot. But this is kind of short notice, so it's not really a big deal either way. Personally, I would have rather seen Price because I think he's significantly more skilled than Molina. But I think you're right in the sense that Molina is he's got somewhat of a chance because he can take it a bit better. Price is definitely chinny. Price, that's part of the reason Price hasn't. In terms of skills, I think Price could be world class, but that chin just isn't holding up against any big shot that he takes.
Yeah, if it didn't hold up against Tony Thompson twice, it's definitely not going to hold up against Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, well, and he stopped by Irk and Tepper, but to Price's, oddly, and luckily in his favor, both of the guys that he lost to tested positive for drugs. So, I mean, he can kind of piggyback off that and still say, hey, well, I was beaten by cheaters. So
yeah, but those drugs didn't make his chin so weak.
No, they didn't need the drugs to beat him, but again, it's convenient. But I mean, this is short notice. It is what it is. Joshua's going to beat his ass, and I expect nothing less. But hey, again, for short notice, I'm fine with it.
Well, another fight that was just announced early in the year, a welterweight fight between Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia. I think that's a very intriguing matchup.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would say that it's on the level of intrigue that Porter and Thurman created. I mean, Danny Garcia, even though he's been, what a lot of people would call a cherry picker, him fighting Vargas, this is a big fight for him. It's a big fight for Thurman, and I think we're all excited about it. I mean, the welterweight division is one that we've all kind of got our eye on, and this will help, clear up things a bit. Whoever wins this fight is not only the WBC title holder, but the WBA, and I'm excited to see it.
All right, so that brings us to this week's pay-per-view fight, Manny Pacquiao versus Jessie Vargas. Number one, this should not be a pay-per-view fight. But number two, it probably should be before Canelo Alvarez and Liam Smith.
Yeah, probably should be. I mean, at least Vargas has had a number of fights against some top-level opposition, whereas Liam Smith did not. But, I mean, the reason this is pay-per-view is, Arum thinks that Pacquiao can always sell pay-per-views, but, HBO wouldn't pick this up. And
they're not even going to show the fight the week after.
No, to their credit, too. I mean, I really think this is a big mismatch. I mean, Vargas is a good fighter, and I give him credit for that.
Well, don't give it away yet. We're going to talk about the undercard first, Jerry.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
I was just bringing up the fact that I'm tired of guys. I mean, I think this is the first year I've went without paying for a pay-per-view boxing match.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know we can get it for free online.
Yeah.
Now, Kovalev Ward will break that streak for me if the fight comes off, which I have no reason to think it won't, because I'll pay for that when to watch it on the big screen in high definition. But I'm not for this. It's got a few interesting fights on the undercard. We'll start off with Oscar Valdez, WBO featherweight title fight against Osawa from Japan. I know nothing about Osawa. From looking at his record, it doesn't look like his competition's been that great. What's your take on Valdez, and do you think there's any way Osawa can give him any trouble?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is Valdez's first defense. He's still a little green. His only big fight has been against Gradovich. It's his first defense. This is a voluntary. He gets to pick who he wants to, and oftentimes we see a guy, in his first defense, he just takes on a guy who has a winning record, but somebody he can easily beat. And this certainly looks to be one of those guys. I mean, he's lost or drew or struggled with many a lesser fighter. He seems to have some height, but he doesn't particularly look like a big puncher like, say, Amagasa was against Rigondeaux. I just don't see him possessing anything in his favor, and Valdez is a really talented guy. I mean, I think a lot of people have high hopes for him. It's a packed division. I think Valdez wins an easy fight. I think he stops him and moves on to bigger and better things.
All right, next up we got Nonito Donaire, WBA super bantamweight title fight with Jesse Magdaleno. Donaire experienced 37-3. This is probably a mismatch, too. We don't really know because Magdaleno is one of those guys like Osawa where you don't see a lot of quality competition there. He's 23-0, 17 knockouts. Like I said, Donaire has lost to Nicholas Walters, beat Vic Darcinian, and he lost the unanimous decision to Guillermo Rigondeaux. What's your take here? Any chance of an upset?
I think there is a chance. I mean, I've seen a bit of Magdaleno. He's a quality fighter. He's a southpaw, which may pose some problems for Donaire. Again, I've seen him fight a few times, and he looks like a good fighter. The problem is his competition level hasn't been particularly high. With Donaire fading, Donaire to me hasn't looked the same for a few years now, and he struggled a bit. He struggled in not his last outing with the Hungarian, but the outing before that. So I think there's a potential for the upsets, but I don't think it happens. I think Donaire has enough left in the tank. I think he has enough pop to pull this one out. But it's an okay fight. It's all right.
Now, my question is this: what are they going to charge for this pay-per-view? Any idea?
I have no idea. I mean,
I bet at least $49, probably $59 or $69 now.
Probably, but I cared so little about paying for it that I didn't even bother checking.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is this. I'm not a big Don King fan, but at least when Don King would give you a pay-per-view fight and charge you for it, he would give you something underneath of it also. Heck, I remember, Tyson Ruddock, you had Julio, you had, who was Jeff Fennick against Azuma Nelson on the undercard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when was the last time we had an undercard that was worthy of being pay-per-view as an undercard even?
It certainly hasn't happened very much, especially in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I would be more entertained with, the old Bob Arum putting Butterbean and Mia St. John on the card than watching a lot of the stuff they give us.
Well, the problem with Arum is, he may be a veteran trainer and he may have been a part of a number of really big fights, but this card highlights his recent matchmaking skills. I mean, you have Zhu Shiming fighting for a vacant WBA world title.
What's he done to deserve that?
He hasn't done anything. And again, it's a vacant title. Zhu Shiming, he had a big amateur career, but he's beaten nobody of note to get there. But again, with Shiming, what I'm trying to highlight is this is for a vacant WBO world title. Oscar Valdez won a vacant WBO world title in his last outing. Donaire won a vacant WBO title. That's how he obtained his title, winning a vacant one. And Vargas has a WBO vacant title. It's one of those things where, as I've said in the past, Bob Arum is trying to keep everything in-house. He's got a bunch of top-ranked fighters fighting one another, and he's dealing with, WBO, obviously very closely. I mean, it's just not mere coincidence that we have, 4 WBO titles on one card.
So that will bring us to the main event, which is Jessie Vargas, Manny Pacquiao. The first thing I see here is this. The only way this is competitive is if they show up and Pacquiao's old, which can happen at the age he's at. Vargas, to me, is a really good fighter, but he's just good. He's not elite like a Pacquiao. I mean, if you look at his record, he beat Stevie Forbes a few years ago by a unanimous decision, beat Antonio DeMarco, lost a unanimous 10-round decision to Tim Bradley, and I think his last fight he beat Saddam Ali. You look at Pacquiao, since the Mayweather fight, he had the one outing against Tim Bradley where he did look pretty good. I mean, it didn't look like he was over the hill. So I don't see how Vargas can even really be competitive in this fight.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, to me, Timothy Bradley was winning that fight. Was winning his fight against Vargas clearly before. Even if he got, even if the fight was prematurely called, because the ref messed up, I thought Bradley was clearly outboxing Vargas, and Vargas, Vargas not being on Timothy Bradley's level. Well, we see that Bradley, as good as he is not on Manny Pacquiao's level. I mean, and not only that. Again, like you said, Vargas is a good fighter, but when we go through his record, anybody who's watched him, anybody who's watched his career progression, I mean, he struggled against Wael Omatosa, he struggled against Khabib Al-Khabiriev, he struggled against Anton Novikov, a high work rate guy. He didn't look particularly impressive against an old DeMarco. I mean, he looked good against Saddam Ali. That was probably his best fight to date. But Ali wasn't particularly proven himself, and anybody who's followed Ali's career knows that he couldn't take it well on the chin. In my opinion, even if Pacquiao gets old, he would have to get real old to lose this fight because
he'd have a walker.
Yeah, he'd have to. I think he would actually have to hurt his arm. I think he'd have to be a one-arm fighter and be really old to lose this fight.
So
Vargas
if he's a one-arm fighter that's using a wheelchair, Vargas has a shot, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's not happening. I mean, Vargas, he doesn't hit hard enough to stop Pacquiao, and he has no advantage here. He's not tougher than Pacquiao. He's not quicker. He's not more powerful. There's just nothing in his favor here. And I see Pacquiao, what I would like to see Pacquiao do is, he hasn't had one in a long time. I'd love to see him get a stoppage. I mean, Vargas is he's a tough kid, but I've seen him hurt on a number of occasions, and I think Pacquiao getting a stoppage would reinvigorate his career, to a small degree. Of course, a lot of us are like, okay, well, it's Jessie Vargas, but it would still look good, and maybe he'd feel better about himself, and maybe he would, seeing as he is fighting at a high level still, he would continue on. He would.
Yeah.
Make
So the question
is,
do you think he can be a top 10 pound for pound fighter still?
I do. And the reason I think so is because as good as, like Keith Thurman looked against Porter, as good as a guy like, a prospect like Errol Spence looks, I think that Pacquiao doesn't look much worse or worse at all than Thurman does or Danny Garcia does. And I think if Pacquiao could somehow become, the welterweight champion again or beat some of the top level guys, I think he could easily make that pound for pound list.
Well, the guy I like seeing fight, and I think you would too. We talked about it before. Is Terrence Crawford?
Oh yeah, that would be in the fans' best interest. I'm not sure Arum wants to make that leap, but for me, I think Crawford takes it. I think it's a passing of the torch moment. But I think it's an excellent fight. I think if they wanted to do it at 140, I think they could. If they wanted to do it at 147, I think they could make that happen too. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, but I think the problem there is the thing I'm worried about is he still looks good against a guy like Vargas. Then he fights another guy like Vargas and another guy like Vargas just trying to cash in.
Yeah. Yeah, and seeing as Pacquiao's on the downslide, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Arum just kind of keeps feeding him guys like that. That's kind of what his recent fistic diet has been anyways. We have the Vargas fight, and then we have an unnecessary third fight with Bradley, and then we have, guys like Algieri and Rios.
I'll probably fight Marquez again too. I don't know.
Honestly, I'd much rather see a fight with
Jessie Vargas. Yeah.
Oh yeah, please give me that. I would have rather seen it than Algieri or the Bradley fight.
But see, the other thing about Arum is this. I don't think he really gives a damn about his fighters. He just protects them to protect his own investment. So I think it's another thing that maybe if Pacquiao's pay-per-view numbers are not very good, which I don't think there's any way that they can be, maybe he cashes in on Pacquiao by maybe feeding him to Terrence Crawford.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe when he's figured like, hey, he's certainly at the end of the line now. Maybe he does. It would be a big fight. A lot of us would love to see it, and I think in terms of pay-per-view sales, it would do much better than it's going to do with Bradley or honestly, just about anybody from 140 to 147. That might be the biggest selling fight there is.
Well, I think it would be just because you got Pacquiao in it.
Yeah.
The other thing is this, though. I also think it's possible that maybe Pacquiao's not that big a sell anymore just because all the people have felt like they were burned from the Mayweather fight. Yeah, and I think, fighting Crawford would help get that back. But, what it's going to do against Vargas, I'd be surprised to see 300,000 views. But yeah,
who knows?
I don't think it will. And I still think in the end, Arum will cash him out. We'll watch Pacquiao, like most other great champions, get beat half to death in the middle of a ring in a pay-per-view fight. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, it seems like Arum is part of the reason Pacquiao keeps fighting. Pacquiao clearly has all sorts of things to do. Money problems.
Yeah. Yep.
But all right. Our Australian welterweight, you got an update on him?
I do. Jeff Horn actually fought a guy named Rico Mueller, a European-level kind of fighter, last weekend. And I took a gander at the fight, caught it on YouTube, and Jeff Horn actually looked pretty good, I must admit. He's looking like the guy he looked in the Olympics, an Olympian. He was sharp in all of his movements. He jabbed a lot, which isn't something that he was particularly well known for, but he jabbed sharply. He threw the right hand often. His head movement was really good. Rico Mueller barely landed any shots at all. But Horn looks sharp, and from what I'm hearing, at least from some of the updates, some of the things that you see on like Boxing Scene and whatnot, Horn may be in line to fight Errol Spence next, because I guess he's the next highest-rated contender, and he's one of the few guys who actually said he would fight Errol Spence. A lot of the guys
getting back on the show then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to have him on, and him versus Errol Spence is an intriguing matchup. Even though I think a lot of people, when they hear the name Jeff Horn, unfortunately, they're like, well, who is that? Well, Horn is a good fighter. I'm not saying that he beats Spence. I'm not predicting a winner either way, but it's an intriguing matchup, at least for me.
Yeah, and if you want to hear our interview with Jeff Horn, you go to grillingtruth.net, go in a little search box, click boxing, and pull up all the interviews we've had with former boxers, or you just post or put Jeff Horn in the search box and find it there. Any final words for tonight's show, Jeremiah?
Nope, no final words. My final words were actually going to be about Jeff Horn and congratulating him on his victory. But I am excited, by the fact that we're actually going to have some boxing to talk about, and see how the year plays out.
We got Ward coming up soon.
Oh, yeah, I'm really excited about that. Well, I'm also pretty excited about the Lomachenko-Walters fight. I may actually go to that one.
Yeah, that's a great fight, too. Where's that one at?
It's in Vegas. It's in it's in Vegas. I think it's at the Cosmopolitan.
Yeah. All right. Well, don't go down there and lose all your money.
No, I'm not much of a gambler.
You can't pay your phone bill, and we can't do the show. It'll be a big mess.
Yeah. I'm going to get a new phone as soon as I get back to Denver. I'm actually on vacation here in Louisiana for a few days.
All right. Well, we'll let you get back to your vacation, and we're going to get wrapped tonight's show up. Make sure you check out all of our shows, all of our articles, football, baseball, basketball, boxing, at thegruelingtruth.net. You can follow us on Twitter at grillingtruth. Our main sponsor, Gridiron Mo, check that out, www.gridironmo.com. Coming up this week on our shows, we will have Tuesday morning, you'll be able to hear our CFL Pick'em show with myself, former CFL Hall of Fame quarterback Dieter Brock, Brian Schmidt, and Oz Davis. Tuesday night, we'll have the NFL Pick'em show with myself, Matt Andrew Scavage, former Denver Bronco offensive lineman Mark Cooper, Brian Schmidt, and Aaron Zepnick. Also, let's see, what else we got? Also, I will be interviewing, you'll be able to hear it Wednesday, former Cincinnati Bengal All-Pro nose tackle Tim Crumry, who will be on our show Wednesday. So, for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.